survey timing. So we intentionally made the survey longer than we would ever want a survey to be. It averaged out about 13 minutes, just to see if we could measure where the dropout rate occurred. So that also factored in there. And of course, we entered in open-ended questions. Finally, the other thing we did is we wanted to make sure that different platforms, smartphone platforms, could still do this and do it effectively and consistently. So we tested that and also asked people's experience to kind of understand a little bit about how they felt about it. So here's what we learned. So response rates. We found no difference, no significant difference between online and mobile. So again, if you think about a few frames back about this idea of people aren't going to respond to a mobile device at a higher rate than online. We found that not to be true. We found that incentives, higher incentives were not required, even if we asked people to go into the store. So that's an important finding, we think. We felt like up to 10 minutes is doable. We wouldn't want to go beyond that, and we wouldn't want every survey to be up to 10 minutes, but we feel comfortable that in those 10 minutes, you're still going to get good, valid, reliable data. And there's some other things here in terms of verbatims. We found that people gave as many characters response open-end as they did online. And I think that that's an important finding as well. Again, the smartphone interface makes it easier to type, and so we think that that's why it's different than traditional feature phone technology. Scales, I think this is very important too. 3-point fully anchored, 5-point end anchored, works great. We wouldn't recommend anything beyond that. I think fully anchored 5-point, it gets really stretched and really kind of tight, probably not the optimal. And our max diff worked really, really well. Now, one of the things I want to just show you is this is just an example of the results for two reasons. One, I want to show you how consistent the results were, but also to point out something that we found that was interesting in the analysis as well. So again, we're talking first quarter of this year. When we take a look at the three groups involved, we really broke out the online people into two camps. People who were online who didn't have a smartphone, people who were online who filled out the survey online but had a smartphone, and people who had a smartphone and filled out the survey from their smartphone. When you take a look at these two groups, this normalizes any demographic differences between the people who have smartphones and don't, and it shows you how incredibly consistent those results are. This is just one question, but we found the same thing to be true in the research as a whole. Now, what I want to do is have Julie Beth talk a little bit about what she feels from a Best Buy perspective, the implications of that are, and what that could mean from a techniques and approach perspective.
Thank you. I seem to have the double touch thing going on here, so I'm going to be very gentle with this device. So in terms of applying mobile today, I think many of you have probably entered that space, and there are a lot of ways we can engage with mobile already. I mentioned having people share pictures and videos and vignettes, so their own lifestyle exploration, how they can share that. This one down here, pricing, we see this all the time in our stores, right? People are coming in and they're scanning prices and they're actually comparing. Should I buy it here? Should I go down the street to Walmart or some other competitor? So it's a very active and engaging kind of tool. One thing I'd love to just share is this example. There's a company that's just getting started out of Australia. I don't know if any of you have heard of watchmethink.org, but it's a really interesting idea. They actually have people who basically take videos and vignettes of themselves interacting with a brand or a product, and then they send it to Watch Me Think. And they're not even in the United States yet, but I've just learned a little bit about them. And a great example, so there's a woman who was trying to open the equivalent of like cream. I don't know if she used it in her cereal or whatever. And so she's videotaping herself and she's explaining how the pull tab always rips off when she tries to open the box. And then she has to poke it with a knife, and then when that happens, it cuts into the thing and she pours it out and it splashes everywhere. She's just going through this example of how miserable it is for her to open her cream every morning. And she sends it to Watch Me Think, and they post it there, and the brand, the owner of that product, can see these. And so you're seeing people experiencing your products for good or for bad. So it's just another example of like very real-time product evaluation. It was all done through her phone. So a lot of potential applications like that. So, and we use these obviously for a lot of other things. But I think the evolution of them is where it's really interesting. Greg and I are going to talk about some of the things that are more cutting edge, specifically in the market research space, and some ways that you may want to consider beyond just a survey, how you might engage with your audience.
Exactly. So, again, what we're going to do is just talk about first of all, let's talk about the technology. So, we've already seen, there are companies that are doing some work with regard to geolocation, but I think, the idea of how do you create high-level, macro-level analytics around location I think is something that is going to be an interesting phenomenon. Right now, I think we see a lot of qualitative, let's watch how people are kind of going around or checking in where they're at. But one of the things I think that the power of this also is, and we've created this as well, is a geo-validation capability. So the person actually checks in before they do a location-based survey. So we can, again, verify that, you know what, the only way they can do the survey is if they check in and they have the type of, you know, environment, let's say they're going to a grocery store. If there's actually a grocery store within, let's say, 500 yards of their device, they check in with that, then they can go with that. So again, it's just sort of, again, ensuring the validity of the information, the insights that we collect. We've heard a lot about gamification, and I think mobile is a great way to leverage gamification. So how can you make this experience, again, more enjoyable, more game-like, more fun? We think there's a lot of possibilities there. Obviously, as Julie Beth talked about, QR codes are everywhere now, and launching surveys from them is not anything novel. But I think one of the things that's really interesting is the idea of UPC barcode scanning. So the idea of, let's use our mobile device to scan the products I'm shopping for, maybe that I'm purchasing, but maybe even, and we're working with another client on this one as well, is how can we take some of the product attributes of this product? So let's say you're comparing two different products on a shelf. Well, have that scanned information about, let's say, the protein level or the caloric content or the sugar content be part of a trade-off so that you can actually see, here's these two products, here's these different attributes, and how do you make those changes, or make those choices. The other one that I'm personally very excited about is as 4G technology rolls out, I think what we're going to see is the opportunity for us to do live ethnographic video interviews from a mobile device. So rather than having an ethnographer going along with them, we could actually be interviewing them where they are in real time and then capturing that. I think there's some really, really exciting possibilities with that as well. But I think there's some other universal implications for research, which Julie Beth's going to talk about.
The other thing, just to touch on the geolocation, so we did a study last holiday, which is a really big time in retail, obviously, where we had participants who were part of a panel and had agreed to have their devices tracked. So we could say, okay, for this audience of people, we know that they drove past the Best Buy, they went to the H.H. Gregg, they spent 30 minutes there, and then they drove to the Kmart or the Target. And then we were able to follow up with them with a survey to go like, well, why did you do that? You know, why didn't you come, or what did you buy, and what were you looking for, what was most important to you? So we actually put the geolocation together with a survey and found some really interesting competitive insights that way. In terms of reach, I think this is a really big opportunity for us. First of all, I think in terms of, you know, so I think you mentioned 35% of adults now have a smartphone. If any of you have teenagers, 100% of them have smartphones, I'm sure. But it is an opportunity to reach some segments that in the past perhaps have been a little bit harder to have access to. Our Hispanic population, for example, many more perhaps having smartphones than even laptops, so an opportunity to reach to them. Millennials, global markets, so that's an opportunity. Authenticity, so 2 comments on this. One, we did a project where we were talking to a partner, and they'd done a study with women about makeup. And they wanted to understand brand loyalty. So they were asking women questions about the brand of makeup they use, right? So, and someone would say, I am Clinique all the way, right? Or I am Lancome all the way, that's all I use. And they asked them to take their smartphones into their bathroom and take a peek in their drawer or medicine cabinet or wherever they keep their products and just scan it, take a little quick video, and lo and behold, guess what they found? Maybelline, Clarins, la 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 la, right? So sort of gave a little bit truer perspective on what they felt and what they actually did, so brought some of that together. And the quote I like from one of our boomer women said, the easier you make it for me and the closer that question is to my experience, the more likely I am to give you my feelings, my perspective, etc. So, right, so I'm in the store, I'm being asked a question, I'm right there, it's really easy, it's on my phone, I'm done. As opposed to I have to go home, dig the receipt out of my purse, look up the website, log in, take the survey, right? So giving us some authenticity, and again, from some groups we may not have heard from in the past. Yes, our tech-savvy customers. So if any of you have children, you know, they were born like with a mouse in their hand or a ability to text. Greg's son, we're going to show you a quick video of our future tech-savvy consumers. 18 months?
He was 20 months.
20 months.
But he's been doing it since about 18.
20 months old, right? So this is the next generations aren't going to be using the abacus and the typewriter, clearly. So we're going to need some way to connect with them, and I think your smartphone is certainly a possibility. And then finally, sort of a personal passion of mine, but one that I would encourage you all to think about. So the ability for us to be connected in our world through smartphones, through texting, talking, web, anything, has really created this feeling of connection among people and brands. Consumers want to be part of something greater than just themselves, and they give credibility and loyalty to brands who help them do that. And as we spend billions, literally billions of dollars every year on incentives and ways that we're trying to engage with consumers, making them part of something greater is a huge opportunity. So there are organizations like Pause for a Cause. It's an app, you could have it on your smartphone, right? And you are part of this group of hundreds of charitable organizations where I could be waiting in line at the Caribou coffee shop for Greg to come and meet me, and I've got 5 minutes, so I log in and I take a survey, and I just bought a malaria tent, right, for someone. Or you engage with groups of people who have shared passions, and then instead of getting a $5 coupon or 10 points to my rewards program, I'm actually doing something greater. And the engagement and the likelihood of getting participation from people who might otherwise not do that has actually been shown to be far greater. So it's just something to put in your mind that you can use these devices not just to accomplish your own research objectives, but to actually give back in ways that draws a great amount of engagement and attention. So with that, what are the 4 things you need to know? The takeaways from this, there are probably many more things, but we'll just stick with 4. Number 1, start in a safe place, right? So you're not going to probably embark upon your first mobile research project if you were asked to come up with a board of directors presentation or the performance goals for your CEO, right? But you might engage with an innovative business unit within your organization who wants to try something new and is into technology or is open to new methods of gaining consumer insights. So start in a safe place. And consider going beyond monetary incentives. So not just the research for social causes and for good, but as I mentioned with our QR code example, we gave people a big smiley face, we're really glad you had a good experience today, or we let them know they were part of so many people that responded and this is how the stats fell out. I mean, just something interactive, gamification, other ways to get them excited about using their phone in downtime or whenever they want to communicate with you. Have a method to your madness. So what do I mean by this? This is part of a bigger picture, right? So I would hope that as exciting as our presentation is, you aren't all running out at the end of it to call up your teams and say, quick, do a mobile survey, right? How does this fit into your overall research plan? Is it a qualitative introduction to something bigger? Is it a quantitative validation of something else that you're doing, right? How does it fit in? Where can you use it in a way that gives it some legs, allows it to grow as a reasonable and valid method in your organization, gives you some credibility with it, and then becomes part of that holistic story that I talked about, where you're triangulating the data from it with other valid methods. And then finally, integrate, right? So it's not a standalone thing. Perhaps it's something that you support with pre and post research with other methodologies that tells a really compelling story and makes everyone want to go out and trust you to do more of that. And I have one prediction. I didn't tell Susan I was going to say this, but this is my prediction, and if I'm wrong, that's okay. My hope and prediction is that next year, if you all come to the market research event, as you walk out the door, they're going to have little QR code scanners by the door, so you don't have to fill out those evaluation forms anymore. You just scan your phone or your smartphone as you go, and you give your feedback that way. And it's instant feedback. It's instant for the market research event folks. It's instant for the presenters, and so it's just another evolution where you might start to see these kinds of things in our world as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.